Roman tragedy was founded entirely on that of the Greeks. In early times, there existed crude dramatic productions called satire, which provided an opening for the translation from the Greek dramas brought on the stage by Livius Andronicus. He was a Greek by birth, but was brought to Rome as a captive in about 200 BC. It is to him that Roman tragedy owes its origin. His dramas and those of his successors were more or less free versions of Greek originals. Even the tragedies or historical plays drawn from national Roman materials called fabulae pretext, the first writer of which was his immediate successor, Novius, in about 235 BC, was entirely modeled on the Greek. The most noteworthy representatives of tragedy under the Republican were Aeneas, Pacuvius, and Axius, besides whom only a few other poets produced any works about this time. It is true that the scanty fragments we possess of these dramas admit of no positive judgment as to their merit, but there is no doubt that they rank far below the original creations of the Greeks. It may also be clearly inferred from the fragments that declamation and pathos formed a characteristic attribute of Roman tragedy, which was intensified by a studied archaism of expression. Moreover, the titles of their plays that have come down to us show that preference was given to subjects relating to the Trojan epic style cycle. This is to be explained by the Trojan origin claimed by the Romans. Next to this, the most popular were the myths of Pelopide, of the Theban cycle, and of the Agronauts. Euripides was the favorite model. After him, Sophocles, rarely Aeschylus. Roman tragedy, like Greek, were made up of spoken dialogue in iambic trimeters and musical portions called cantica. The only tragedies of Roman antiquity which we possess are those of the philosopher Seneca, which show great mastery of form and a fertile imagination, but suffer from an intolerable excess of rhetorical declamation. It is doubtful whether they were intended for the stage at all and not rather for public recitation and for private reading. If to Roman comedy must be assigned a subordinate rank in the history of dramatic literature, still lower in the scale was the tragedy of the Latins. Little as we have seen have come down to us except for a few plays of Seneca with occasional fragments from less prominent works, while the works of Horace and Virgil, of Ovid and Lucretius still hold their own with the great Hellenic masters. Roman tragedy is practically extinct. Among the numerous imitators of the Greeks during the later Republican era, Marcus Pacuvius and Lucius Accius are worthy of special mention. Pacuvius, a native of Brundisium, removed to Rome in early youth and earned his livelihood by painting, turning his attention to tragedy when well advanced in years. His style was formed after that of his uncle Ennius, and in literary circles he was regarded as a model of artistic and polished composition. Yet, in the fragments that have reached us, there is much to justify Cicero's censure of his language and Lucilius's condemnation of his style. More readable and adroit are the imitations of Greek tragedy by Lucius Accius, the son of a freedman of Pisaurum and a younger contemporary of Pacuvius. At the opening of the Augustan age, the condition and prospects of dramatic literature were simply lamentable. Both in tragedy and comedy, all that possessed and traced of Roman nationality had become extinct. New pieces were no longer performed, but that they were expected is shown by the reproduction of old comedies under new titles and with other names for the dramatis personae. For as the managers said, it was better to see a good old play than a poor new one. There was indeed a certain productiveness among the Alexandrine school, but this was worse than none. For real dramatic composition, Alexandrine literature never knew. Only a spurious drama, not intended for the stage, was introduced into Rome from the eastern capital, and this had so many readers and imitators that the writing of tragedy was regarded as one of the diseases of youth. Roman theatre, stylistically, is surprisingly similar to Elizabethan theatre, as Shakespeare and Marlowe derived some of their stories and themes from Commedia dell'arte, which is almost a direct descendant of the Roman theatrical traditions. Now keep in mind that the Middle Ages changed the Roman traditions significantly as they focused primarily on religious presentations and less character secular driven stories. This took hold mostly in Germany, France, and Spain, where the church had a much stronger presence during that period. In Italy, since it wasn't a full nation at the time, but a collection of city states, they kept the Roman traditions alive while combining the themes that the church wanted presented. But since the dominant city states like Venice, Florence, Milan, Turin, and Naples were merchants first and good Catholics last, they did what made money. And what made money were the traditional Roman stories of love that had a comedic base. The Romans loved comedies, particularly romantic comedies involving mistaken identity, missed opportunities, will they, won't they, and defying parents for love. So that's what they ran with, and it became so popular during the Renaissance that it made its way to Britain during the Tudor period after the great English playwrights returned from travels to the Italian peninsula. What's interesting about the Roman theatre is that it was born out of tragedy. Following a great plague in 364 BCE, the Senate added theatre to the traditional games celebrations called Lectisternium and mandated that they be uplifting since the young Roman Republic, having just transitioned from a monarchy, needed relief from all the death surrounding them. This is similar to the occurrence of the Renaissance after the Black Death in the 14th century CE. In both cases, comedy became the dominant art form. Around 240 BCE, no one really knows this date for certain. The first translations of Greek plays began appearing in Latin and on the Roman stage, and Greek theatrical traditions began being incorporated into the Roman theatrical culture. This is when we start to see more tragedy and what we would think of as drama being presented, but the Romans still included their comic relief into the stories. The Romans were the first theatrical culture to use interpretation of materials to produce differing versions of the same play, and this has held in the theatrical world ever since. Also, the traditional structure of actors, directors, producers, and technical theatre was developed by them and also still holds. I am going to contradict one of the other posters with regard to women in leading roles, as the historical evidence isn't very strong for that, though the possibility exists that women may have performed non speaking roles in Roman theatrical performances. The overwhelming majority of historical evidence dictates that male actors portrayed all speaking roles. The public opinion of actors was very low, placing them within the same social status as criminals and prostitutes, and acting as a profession was considered illegitimate and repulsive. Many Roman actors were slaves, and it was not unusual for a performer to be beaten by his master as punishment for an unsatisfactory performance. These actions and opinions differ greatly from those demonstrated during the time of ancient Greek theatre, a time when actors were regarded as respected professionals and were granted citizenship in Athens. The bottom line is that if you went to a play in Rome around the time of Caesar, you would recognize it and be able to follow what they were doing, and that brings us to the Greeks. The roots of Greek theatre are still felt today and form the basis of understanding of tragedy and comedy. But The Roman theatre is what we think of when we watch a modern production. In short, they are both important to our history as actors and artists, and without either of them, none of us would ever have done what we did or continue to do.